In this video, we're going to talk about measures of central tendency. So in statistics, what we're always trying to do, because this is an art form, is we're trying to take a data set, an entire data set, and we're summarizing it with a single number. When we talk about measures of center, we're trying to describe the center of a data set with a single number. Now we have three main ways to do so: the mean, median, and mode. Mean, median, and mode. The mean is the average that we think about when we think about average. Add up all the numbers and divide by the number of numbers. So there's a couple ways we could do this in Excel. I'm going to show you the way that you would be used to. First, we would add up all the numbers. So I'm going to hit equal sign, and then I'm going to type in sum. And you should get a list of autofill options. If you are on Windows and you double click on sum here, you'll get it. If you're on a Mac, you can just click here. Or in either case, whether you're on Windows or a Mac, you can just open the parentheses and it knows that you're dealing with the sum function. So if you actually know the name of the function, you can just use it. I'm clicking and dragging to highlight all of the things that I want to sum up. These are exam scores, so I'm summing them up. And then I'm going to divide by the number of numbers. So I can either count here and type in that number, or there is a count function, and that will count the number of cells that have something in it. And that gives me 78.923. Now I can change the number of decimal places that are displayed using this menu here. Okay. An easier way to do that is there's a built-in function to find the mean, and it's called average. So if you type in average and highlight all of the data, you just found the average. Notice how I get the same number either way. So we're going to want to go with the easier way to do this. I'm going to go with average instead of summing and dividing by the number of numbers, which is another formula, count. So our other measure of center is called the median. Now the median has an interesting place here. So it's more about the position of the number and less about the numbers that are actually in the data set. So here you can see I have 13 numbers. If you look at the count at the bottom here, when you highlight cells, it'll tell you the sum, it'll tell you the count, it'll even tell you the average. Okay, so we know we have 13 values. That's an odd number of values. So there is an actual middle to this data set. The middle of 13 is 7. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on one side, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the other side. So 7 would be the middle of the data set, which, since I have this exam scores in cell 1, ends up being row 8. However, 95 isn't the 7th number in this data set because this data set is not in order. So before I find the median, I would want to sort from smallest to largest. It's asking me to expand the selection. I'm going to say no because it wants to sort this mean, median, and mode stuff too, which I do not want to sort. So here we are. Now that the numbers are in order, we can see we have 6 values on one side. We have 6 values on the other side. And so this number right here is my median. So if I wanted to, I could just reference that number by saying equals, and then I want to equal this number, the number that's in cell A8. and that will give me 88. There's also a built-in function called median, and I can highlight my data, and it will find the median. Now, when I use the built-in function, it doesn't matter if this data is in order or not. It will still find the median. So again, when I use the built-in formula median, I do not have to sort the data. I'm showing you how to calculate the mean, the median, and the mode manually, because in the next video, we're going to talk about how to calculate that for grouped data. We have two sets of grouped data here, and we want to find the mean, median, and mode for each. And so that's what we're going to do. And that does not have a built-in formula. Once you're dealing with grouped data, you cannot use a built-in formula to calculate the mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance, any of that stuff. Instead, you need to do it by hand. And by hand, I mean you're going to create your own formula in Excel. So I'm going to show you in this video when we can see the data, how to calculate the median when we have an odd number of numbers, or let's say somebody got 100 on this. Now we have 14 data points. Okay. Now notice how the median that's being calculated here is still 88 and the mean is still 78.923. The reason for that, and you can see this little green marker, is it's saying, hey, I think there's a new data point in your data set. Can you include it? Sure. And as soon as I include it, this updates. So notice now, there's 14 values in my data set. The bottom half would be 7. The top half would be 7. So there is no data value that's actually in the data set. Instead, there is a value that's in between 88 and 89. So to find that value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the average of these two values, and that gives me 88.5, which is exactly what was calculated automatically. And here is where I would put this calculation if I were doing this manually. So now I know the median, I know the mean. The last piece is the mode. Now, the mode is just the value that shows up the most. So in this case, we're talking about the value that shows up the most here is 95. It shows up 4 times. So I could manually just say, well, I know the mode is this value. Or I could use the built-in function for mode. Now you'll notice there's 2 different functions here. There's mode.mult and there's mode.single. So mode.multiple and mode.singular. Now this is an improvement upon previous versions of Excel that just had a mode function, and that mode function would only find one of the modes if it existed. Okay, so mode.mult is what I'm going to use. I'm going to highlight all of my data, and I end up with 95. If there is more than one mode, then what would happen is this function would actually take over the cells below this and list out all of them, each in a single cell, but the whole cell will be wrapped in the same color when you're highlighting it, showing that this one function is actually populating multiple cells. And we'll go over that when we get to our next data set, the MLB teams. So we have our mean, median, and mode. These are our measures of center. So the